Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Open for Business with Joel Anderson, President and CEO, Five Below. As a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the conversation, please submit them using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Here's your host, Deborah Weinswig, CEO and founder of Coresight Research.
Thank you so much, Drew, and thank you all for joining us for today's conversation. Coresight has now hosted over 50 digital events since March 1st, as Coresight researches the topics of tomorrow with impact for today, and we have been advising our retail, technology, and real estate clients in this very unique environment. Open for Business is a platform to provide insights to the industry from thought leaders like Joel Anderson today. Joel has held the role of President and CEO at Five Below since February of 15. Previously, and where we originally met him, was when he served as the role of President and CEO of Walmart.com. He also has held leadership roles across a range of operational, merchandising, and marketing functions at companies like Walmart, Toys R Us, and Lenox. He began his distinguished career at DHL and knew the importance of a strong supply chain from the beginning of his career, which we have always viewed as a competitive advantage for the companies that he's worked for and for himself as well. Joel currently serves on the boards of Sprouts and My Eye Doctor, and we have always admired his ability to ingest a significant amount of data and identify the one solution that nobody in the room was even thinking about. He is truly an out-of-the-box thinker, and we've seen many of these innovative ideas implemented in recent years at Five Below. With that, please join me in welcoming Joel.
Thanks,
Joel,
Deborah.
thanks so much for being here today. There's so much to talk about, especially in the sector that Five Below is participating in. If we think back to early March when the stores closed, how did business resume for you from an e-commerce perspective, and how did you see consumers react, and how did you communicate with them early on?
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. I mean, boy, in some ways, March seems like yesterday, and in other ways, it's like it could have been a decade ago. And I think first and foremost, I got to remember we all learned a new language. PPE, social distancing, essential retailer. I mean, those were not words that rolled off our tongue back then. But clearly, as we decided to make the decision to close our stores, e-commerce became much bigger, as it did for a lot of retailers. And we knew we had to grow our e-commerce business, and we made the acquisition of Holler.com's assets last fall.
Good timing.
It was great timing. It proved out to be good for us. And so, throughout this year, we've been using their assets. We've been, growing our capabilities. And although, digital and e-commerce remains a small piece of our business, it was fortuitous for us to have made that decision to grow it and increase our, throughput capabilities. And so, we saw e-commerce volumes more like holiday for us, only it was only March. And that was really our only way to communicate with the customers during that period of time in which we were shut down.
You're very fortunate that you had the robustness of your site to do that. As you, kind of moved through March and started to look at reopening, can you talk about, kind of what that was like and thinking about reopening and educating your associates, and then how have you communicated with your employees, and what are some of the trends that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, look, first and foremost, when we shut down, health and safety of our associates was first and foremost. We had to figure this thing out just like everybody else did. And one of the best decisions we made during that period was, while we did furlough a lot of people, we kept our store managers. And that turned out to be really important because when we turned around and started to reopen, our store managers were there, and they were always on board. We were in constant communication with them during the closure period, and they knew exactly what to do to get the stores reopened right. We also, kind of used our muscle memory, and fortunately, we've been opening, new stores for a long time now. We were, opened 150 new stores, and so that muscle memory of how to reopen stores is actually pretty good for us. We never thought we'd use it to reopen our existing base, but as a company, we're pretty good at opening a lot of new stores all the time, and that served us well as we tried to get our stores back open. clearly in terms of trends, we've always been a trend right retailer, and we think any trend's a great trend. It was the fidget spinner not too long ago, a few years ago, and for this year, it's really been about masks. It's been about hand sanitizer. Never sold so much hand sanitizer. It's really that theme around staying relevant, right? And we've always been relevant, and right now, essential products is really what's been important to the customer. But it's also been, look, every parent's home with their kids. All schools shut down, and they're looking for an outlet, a way to entertain their kids, and our stores have been that outlet as we've reopened. I can't tell you how many parents have thanked us for getting back open again, and they've been in our stores, shopping and arts and crafts and toys and fitness and everything for kids, throwing footballs and just making nonstop fun at home.
That's fantastic. When we think about merchandising and kind of typical merchandising and buying trips, how that process happens, and then also you're sitting in a very fortunate kind of area of treasure hunt, and there's probably a lot of merchandise available for a treasure hunt.
Sure.
How does that whole, if we think about kind of supply chain or just the buying process, and thinking about kind of the product of today, we've also got the product of tomorrow as we think to back to school and holiday. But if we think about right now, how are you changing your kind of procedures, and how is that continuing to elevate the treasure hunt experience?
Yeah, look, we will always be a treasure hunt retailer. I think that's what makes this art of discovery when you walk into our stores. Customers don't necessarily walk in with a list of things like you would in a grocery store, but they walk in to solve a solution. I'm looking to buy something for my 10-year-old daughter, my 11-year-old son, and our buyers do a great job at that. And certainly as we reopen, we've really watched what the trends have been, and they're back in the market buying, and we've got great partnerships. You and I are talking via video today.
Right.
That's how our buyers are talking overseas, back to China, back to India, some of the other countries we operate in. So in some ways, it's actually allowed us to go faster, and not wait for a buying trip, not wait for a time to fly overseas, because that was basically rendered impossible to do during this time. And so they're using video technology, just as you and I are today, to expedite and get that product back in our stores.
Well, there's also, when we think about it, right, there is expense that's taken out of the business. There's time that can be redeployed, and in some ways, right, we think about this kind of efficient frontier. If we want to think about it, how are you seeing efficiencies kind of edge their ways into the businesses as we're all learning, kind of this new world that we're operating in, and also how are your customers? We think about just efficiency. I would assume that they're doing more in one trip. So is like every day like Saturday, or what are you seeing from that perspective?
Yeah, let me focus on the customer. That's probably where we've seen the biggest changes, and part of it's probably efficiency, part of it's just how the customer's life has changed. But like many retailers, we're operating under shorter operating hours than we ever have. We're only open 11 to 7. And so two things have happened. One, we're seeing our customers consolidate trips. They're being very deliberate when they're out shopping. And we've also seen a migration from the weekends into the week. And so most typical retail, it's all about Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon shopping. And so we've seen a more flattening of the Saturdays, as an example, and that volume shifting into Monday through Thursday. That's actually good for retail. It allows us to be more efficient. We need to spend more time, cleaning our stores, preparing our stores. So while we're closed, we have that time to get the store set for the next day. And the fact that kind of all 7 days are equal now actually makes it much more efficient for the retailer as well. But it's really the customer behavior that changed, and it's turned out to be better for retail.
What do you think? And hopefully there's an end in sight soon to some aspects of our current environment. What kind of aspects of, how the customer is shopping you, how they're changing their relationships with your store associates, what they're doing in terms of online, what aspects of that do you think sticks, and what do you think continues to evolve, or kind of goes right back to where it was in February?
Yeah, I mean, look, the part that's going to stick for a little bit is I call it surgical shopping. A lot of retail was about just getting out and the endorphins released of being out shopping, being in a restaurant, interacting with people, and now our associates are wearing masks. The customer is very prescriptive in what they're buying, and I think until people feel safe that you're not going to die from COVID, I think that trend's going to continue. So this whole safe shopping, surgical shopping, being very prescriptive, that's going to be with us for a while. We certainly see that into 2021. But at some point in time, I do believe that will go away. But I think in the short to medium term, if you call it 6 to 12 months, that's going to be with us for quite some time. And then, unfortunately, I think the other side we're going to see is a continued consolidation of retail. If you didn't enter this with a strong balance sheet, this is really put some real stress on some retailers out there. Unfortunately, we entered with no debt, strong balance sheet, and weathered the storm nicely, and in fact are coming back through this in nice shape.
How do you, Joel, we've already seen a lot of, kind of fresh real estate come on the market. You've been doing a lot of really interesting tests with, kind of the format, the merchandise. Do you think differently in terms of where Five Belows could be located, kind of what the future of some of these additional formats might be? How this seems to me to be, for you especially, who I consider to be a real innovator, an opportunity to take some time and think about the future and what it might look like.
Appreciate the words. And I always say we got to play offense. We've been playing offense the entire 6 years I've been here. The prototype is completely different now than it was. We made a big investment last year in Nerd Street Gaming. We believe heavily in gaming and where that's going to go. That's just another example of how we're changing. We also had to change our model when tariffs came along last year. And that was, for the first time ever, we broke the $5 price point. And we've landed on the branding of Five Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
But what's not different is it's all about value. So look, we have an opportunity now to really bring incredible value to our customers in items above $5. We have the opportunity to be in different markets than we ever have been. You're seeing, if you follow us, you've seen us go into much more rural than we ever thought we'd go. We're pushing into urban more than we thought we would. And so this model is really working, but whether it's urban, suburban, or rural, testing gaming, going above the $5 price point, self-checkout now will be in almost half our chain by the end of the year. And, we started working on that idea long before COVID came along, and really the customer wants that, self-isolating experience, and checkout is part of it. And it's, but for us to pivot from no self-checkout to half the chain in less than 2 years is just a great example of us playing offense, constantly innovating, and thinking about the business differently.
I know that it feels very early and to think about holiday, but I know that, you've done an amazing job historically with, kind of the 10 Below gift shop and just really around gifting. And I think this year, more than ever, we're going to want to celebrate. How are you kind of reimagining, if you will, what gifting looks like and what holiday 20 looks like?
Yeah, look, holiday 20, barring, some big change in a vaccine or therapies, it's going to be a different holiday. And I think more than ever, what I've learned from all the recessions I've been in, my 12 years at Toys R Us, the last place parents stop spending is their kids. Yeah. And we're more than ever going to have incredible gifts. Now that we've got Five Beyond, we're going to bring in some unique gifts we've never had before. And we certainly think there's going to be a bigger shopping experience online than we've had in the past. We've talked about being open 24 hours in December, just to give customers that need more space that time to come in the off hours. So we're still putting together our holiday plans, but those are just a couple examples of how we're changing to really have just a great 2020 holiday.
And as we think about what you learned in March from an e-commerce perspective, how do you, kind of think about the future of omni-channel, next gen commerce, whatever we want to call it, and is there a kind of buy online, pick up in store opportunity? I mean, there's all types of ways to think about last mile, and what are you seeing in terms of what your customers want now, and how do you think about what they might want in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think one example is curbside. We never had curbside. A lot of people didn't have curbside, and that just emerged, in less than 60 days for us. And it's just that contactless transaction is really been important. And look, everybody's at a different stage with this, right? If you're elderly, if you're immune compromised, this is real, and we've got to be there for those customers too that need more space from us, the retailer. And I think e-commerce is going to really provide a great opportunity for that. And so we think certainly BOPUS is going to emerge for us. Look, this isn't 2000 where you can say, oh, e-commerce is just going to go away. And so while it may not be 50% of the business like it is for some other retailers, it is an aspect of convenience that we need to offer our customers that for one reason or another can't walk into our stores and experience a Five Below live. But at the same time, our stores are still a big area of growth for us. We're still going to open over 100 stores this year, and we'll continue to be there in all aspects for the customer.
Thanks, that was really helpful. And one of the things that you had said was this idea of kind of where some of the focus is, right, around gaming and some of these other categories, right, kind of helping parents with students most likely at home, at least in some communities this fall, or university students. How do you, kind of think about this idea? We've heard it so much, I would say, really in the last 2 months about community. Yeah. And I've always felt that, and I think that's probably why Five Below does so well, and I grew up in a rural community, is this idea of, right, kind of it's the place where the community comes together. But as we think about community in a kind of more holistic sense of the word, how are you thinking about that, and how does the physical store, but also how does online create this opportunity for community at Five Below?
I said earlier that one of the best things we did was not lay off our store managers. They are the face of the community. When we get the right store manager, it makes such a difference. And I'll tell you one quick story. We had some stores when we closed down that customers came to our stores and left notes on our windows for us. It was from kids that were at home, parents writing notes to Five Below, can't wait till you're back, hope you're safe, we miss you. And that was them pushing to us, and they literally posted notes on our store windows. And I think I tell that story because it just illustrates that sense of community. And when we can make that connection, and I said earlier, when we go into these rural areas, when we get more densely, more stores and densified, we connect with the local customer. The customer comes in, they know our associates, they know our store manager, and I think that's one of the responsibilities we have, and it's why we're getting into gaming. We have to go and where the kid is spending their share of wallet, and it's a little bit harder to do online. I think online we connect with our social posts, what we're doing, new arts and crafts, and it's amazing. If you go study our Instagram feed or some things like that, the number of customers saying, please come to this city, when are you coming here? That's just us, connecting and creating a sense of community.
So thank you so much for all of those amazing answers. We have a lot of questions, which we'll try to get through most of them from the audience. So first of all, everyone, thank you so much. We'll start with this one from Agnes, because it really does a great job of continuing the conversation. Joel, can you share one big way in which e-commerce and your brick and mortar have worked together this time? What advice do you have for retailers? And can you share key strategies for how retailers can prepare to reopen safely?
Yeah. Well, look, I've fortunately been around the horn a couple times in starting up e-commerce businesses, and one of the things you learned from what was done back in the 2000s was you separated it into a separate channel. And you know, the example here is, our head of supply chain, he runs both our fulfillment centers and our distribution centers, and um, we move our associates back and forth from, when days are busy on because our fulfillment centers are located in our distribution centers, and we move associates back and forth, from heavy days of e-commerce volume to heavy days in retail volume. And that's just one example where we really work together, because the customer doesn't care. One day they're buying from us in a store, that same customer 2 weeks later is buying online, and they want the same experience. So we have one set of buyers. They buy for both our e-commerce channel and our store channel. So we never ever created a separate infrastructure. The only areas that are separate are, if it's dedicated and it's not replicated in our store.
And then are there, any learnings, for Agnes in terms of, as you look to, kind of reopen safely, what were some of the key learnings that you had along the way, and what, just advice, and it could be, this was really hard. What advice do you have for those in the industry?
Look, the best advice I can give any of them is communication. And I can't tell you how many town halls I've done via video. Our head of stores was on almost every week with the store teams. I jumped on many of those, and that sense of community that we were talking about earlier also has to happen internally in your organization as well. So we've spent a lot of time just being out in front, being visible, talking to people. I mean, there was a state of panic of people, really concerned, and you had to reassure them that we were concerned about their safety, what we were doing about their safety, how we were protecting them, what we would do if there was a case. And that had to come from me. It had to come from our head of stores. And that happened constantly. And video was a great way to make that communication happen.
Great. Thanks for sharing that with us. David asked, what supply chain challenges did you have to overcome during the pandemic? And are you having to make any longer term changes to adapt?
Yeah, supply chain was probably the toughest. On one hand, like many retailers, we canceled a lot of orders, and that was really hard to do. We'd never done something like that at that scale, and yet at the same time, you had a lot of orders on the water already that you couldn't stop, that were coming in. And so while your stores weren't open, the distribution center was filling up pretty quick because there was nothing going outbound. And so that balance of where to put the product, how to get the supply chain stopped overseas so that we didn't get clogged up over here, was just one example of, the supply chain. And then the other side was, we really tried to minimize the disruption. And by starting to get stores back opened again, we opened in waves. I think I talked to you earlier about, we fortunately have been a retailer opening a lot of stores for many years now. So we use that muscle memory to help us get reopened. And that was tough. We had to get the supply chain back going again. So we went from shutting it down to turning it back on. And now we have over 99% of the stores reopened. And, but I think those are just a couple of supply chain examples.
Thanks. I love this question because I think it goes back to some of our listeners really want to have a Five Below in their market. But the question also from a David, what drives location of physical stores?
Yeah, great question. I can tell you it's changed over time. When I got here, we pretty much let the real estate organization go wherever they could get a store. We were having to bang on the doors of landlords to explain what the concept was. Now it's the other direction. They're coming to us. They want us to be part of their assortment because it's such a different, we're such a different retailer than, you know, being another apparel store or something like that. But really what we do is we try to have a healthy mix of not too many new markets while densifying existing markets. And so, for example, we just entered California a few years ago, and then we stayed only in Southern California.
Smart.
Because we really, you can't overextend beyond your supply chain. And then when you get specifically into a market, we really want to be in vibrant centers. Look, landlords want a vibrant center as much as we want to be in a vibrant center. So you'll see us largely in A and B, strip malls, power centers. But those are kind of the two examples we focus on. We're not in inside malls, indoor malls, maybe less than 10 stores like that. But we have to have that balance between densifying current markets and not extending into too many states at one time. We did just enter Colorado, and we just entered Las Vegas. But great example, we're going to be in Colorado, but we're only in the Denver area for this year.
Great. There's a question from Deepa, who seems like they're a big fan. There was an article in the New Yorker last week about the true cost of dollar stores. Five Below seems to be doing value right at a better price and is treating employees well. Do you see yourself getting to more staples and necessities so that we can shop you more?
I do. We are starting to add more essentials than we've ever had. We're testing that in a few markets to see how it's received by the customer. All stores, we've added at least 8 feet of essentials, and we're looking at maybe expanding that even further. But look, I appreciate the compliment there. I've always believed you got to treat your associates right. They got to be part of it. You and I talked several examples of community. It always starts with the store manager, and we'll never stop doing that. And look, I think, look, value's been on a roll for 10 years since the last recession. And I think the value retailers that are going to be here long-term are the ones that also, you know, really deliver a great store experience. And I think you can do both. And that's what we're really striving to do, is deliver value for our customer in a great store experience. We've really stepped up our remodel program. Over 60% of our stores by the end of this year will be of the new, what we call the fresh concept, and that concept's only 3 years old. So we're going to stay true to making it a great experience. So thanks for the words there from that whoever sent that in.
So we have many questions. I'm going to ask you one last one, and once again, thank you. So this one is from Kenny, and he wants to better understand, how has Five Below so far been so successful, and can you talk about the word resiliency and what it means to you and what it means to the organization?
You know what, you cut out at me right at the end. How has it been successful, and what was the last part?
Just this idea of resiliency. What does it mean for you, and what does it mean for the organization, and how has it driven success so far?
Look, I mean, part of our success, it goes back to our founders. They created a great business model, and I think the first 10 years of our existence, we've only been around since '02, was to perfect the concept. And that's really what we did. And, we were rewarded by going public. And I think this next 10 years has been about perfecting the company. So how do you take it from concept to scale? And, really I always say it's a three-legged stool: people, infrastructure, and systems. And those are it's a three-legged stool. You've got to invest in all three. So we've really been investing in our people. We've been investing in new infrastructure like distribution centers, and we've been investing in all new systems. And so while it was a great concept, once it took off, we had to now put in enterprise-like systems. We just changed out our financial systems. We changed out our operating systems in our distribution centers, new POS system. So those three areas of people, systems, and infrastructure is really, I think, been the key to staying resilient, and we continue to grow. And we'll continue to invest in those 3 areas.
Joel, thank you so much. What an amazing discussion and truly inspiring in terms of everything that you've done and how you're really helping all of us kind of get back on our feet. Thanks so much, Joel, for joining us, and to everyone that tuned in. We hope to see you all in our next conversation, which is tomorrow with Placer AI at 10 a.m. as we'll discuss the COVID recovery and whether it will be a retail turning point or return to status quo. I guess tune in and we'll see. As a reminder, this and all other events are hosted on our website at coresight.com. Thank you for joining us. And Joel, thank you so much. Words can't express how important this is to the industry and to me personally, so thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Appreciate having me on, and I look forward to seeing you and everybody in the Five Below store soon. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.